The Solar Coach Podcast.
Good afternoon, Pippa.
Hi, David.
Hi, Pippa. Welcome to the show. And to everyone listening, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the Solar Coach Podcast. This week, we've got a magical guest coming on board. So, introducing Pippa Haywood, aka the Magic Coach. To introduce Pippa, Pippa is a spiritual and manifestation coach and a creator of powerful inner journeys who is here to help you awaken the magic that already exists within you. I met Pippa on LinkedIn when we connected through the comments section of a post written by a mutual friend, Emma Snip, aka Snippy. If you're listening, and I have a feeling you are, shout out to you, Snippy. We're both very fond, big fans of your work. So it was actually only literally yesterday that we met for the first time via Zoom and had a great conversation all about working with energy, manifestation, and the law of attraction, and also the energy of AI. So some of that I'm hoping to touch on in our conversation again today. So strap yourself in, folks, for a magical conversation this week. So, like I say, welcome to the show, Pippa. To get us started, can you tell us a bit more about who you are as Pippa Haywood, the Magic Coach?
Thank you. Thank you so much. What a lovely introduction. Thank you so much for having me here today. This is a joy to be here. And oh my goodness, I've nearly forgotten the question already. Who am I? Who am I? What do I do?
Yeah, what do you do?
What do I do? Well, I'm all about reconnecting people with the magic within. Now, I believe that we all are magical beings. I believe that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And I think that we all have a huge amount of power to create the lives that we want, essentially. I think that that's why we're here. I fully believe in manifestation, and I feel that part of my soul's calling, part of my kind of mission for being here is to help people tap into that magic that they've just forgotten. I think that we all know it. I think sometimes it takes the gentlest little nudges to remind people of that magic that they've got within them. Sometimes it needs a bit more of a hearty shove. But yeah, that's what I'm here for, and that's what I do in my work.
Thanks, Pippa. Thanks for that sort of the headline on who you are and what you do. Um, I think I'd love to explore with you what's led to you becoming the magic coach and doing the work you do now. Where would be best to start on that journey? Where shall we begin?
Ooh, where should we begin? Well, I mean, it's something I often talk about, and something that perhaps makes me not unique, certainly, but unusual, is that I grew up in this kind of magical environment. Spirituality, alternative spirituality was formed my childhood, my teenage years, um, and I'm hugely grateful for that, because it really helped shape, that it shaped the books I read, it shaped the relationships that I've had, which of course they're the things that form us, that shape us. So I get, well, I've just told you about that bit. Um, but that's where it starts, isn't it? Our formative years. Yeah.
And
Um,
what? Go on. Yeah.
no, go on. I was done. Yeah.
I was going to say, and I remember you said in our conversation just yesterday that you were a vegetarian before vegetarianism was even a thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. We were like, I grew up in a village, and we were definitely like that, only vegetarians in the village. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, my mum grew food. She was really aware. One of the books that had a hugely profound effect on my mum was Silent Spring. I don't know if you've heard of that book. It's about the sort of overuse of pesticides and how that was going to lead to the decimation of wildlife, particularly birds, and the kind of breakdown of um, biodiversity, essentially. And so she was a big believer in growing organic veg, and um, she like, we grew up having homeopathic remedies. It's kind of one of us fell over, it'd be like, oh, get the arnica rather than anything else. And so this was like, this all formed part of my education, I suppose. I grew up knowing what herbs might do what, and about aromatherapy oils, and which in the 80s it wasn't, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful that now things like that are becoming much more mainstream than they were in the 80s, which kind of um made me uh I want to use the phrase oddball, made me a bit of an oddball like in my community, in my school, that sort of thing. And part of that also included like the sort of secrecy, my mum and dad followed a guru, and because they were quite conscious of me not wanting to be the oddball, they would say, "Oh, maybe don't talk about that. Don't talk about that with your friends. Don't mention this, don't mention that." And so, lovely as that was, I did also grow up feeling that that was not necessarily something to be ashamed of, but certainly not something to share um, openly and publicly, which of course I now do every day, in my as I market myself as a coach, as I put myself out there and uh, shout from the rooftops about what I do. Yeah.
Thanks, Pippa. So I sensed this, would I be right in saying this was the beginning of you having kind of two perspectives, like two realities, like the beginning of that separation, which we spoke about yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, it definitely was. Definitely the me that was at home was different to the me that was out with my friends and in the kind of public space. Yeah, that was definitely it was definitely a split. Yeah, for me. Yeah.
And then
Mm.
what led to you from that unconventional upbringing? What led to you start beginning your 20-year career that you felt called to do?
Mm. Well, um, so before I started coaching, in fact, well, before I had my daughter, who's now 10, before I had my daughter, I worked in social care. I worked with adults with disabilities, um, in their homes, in the community, yeah, in lots of different places. Yeah, all over. That's what I did, and doing that work, that came from a genuine love of helping people, of wanting to um wanting to help people, wanting to heal. I'd been studying kind of spiritual healing and um the Claire's senses, so kind of communicating without words. That's quite a succinct way of describing it. And that was a way I could kind of do all of those things, but it wasn't necessarily overt. And it was just something that I felt very cool to do, and I really enjoyed doing. I loved that. And then as I kind of progressed through my career, then I was um, managing staff as well. And so I was having this, understanding that actually I could help the people who were helping too. And in a way, that's kind of similar to what I'm doing now. The vast majority of my clients are coaches themselves. So it's that kind of that holding space for people who care. Yeah, helping the helpers, I guess. It's quite interesting. I'm not sure I've ever really put that together until I was just saying it then. Yeah.
Love it. Realizations, insights going on in the call.
Yeah.
You mentioned yesterday, was it during your career that you realized that you had this enhanced ability to communicate, particularly with people who are nonverbal?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And what was maybe weird is that I almost didn't really understand that wasn't normal. I didn't really understand, like, I just kind of thought that was something that everybody could do. I used to find it quite bizarre when I was working on shift with somebody and I would know what somebody, what somebody wanted. Perhaps one of my clients that was non-verbal, I would know what they wanted and I would be able to kind of meet their needs, um, obviously without them being able to say anything, but the other people that I were working with didn't understand how I was able to do that, and it would, and so that for me was quite surprising actually, especially because I was about 17 when I first started doing that kind of work, and I found it really surprising. I think that I could feel what other people were feeling before things escalated as well, I think was quite surprising. And one of the reasons why, oh, I toot my own trumpet for a minute, why I was so good at it. Yeah, yeah.
I get that. It's that I sometimes feel it myself. It's the old saying of you can read the room. You could cut the tension with a knife.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel quite aware when I walk into a room of what the situation is, particularly if there's been conflict in that room.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is completely a Claire's sense. That is that is one of the Claire's. There are so many different ones, and I actually think that everybody has them. So I think maybe I almost sort of going back on what I said a minute ago, about being surprised that other people couldn't do that, because I actually believe that everybody can do that. I believe everybody has the ability to um learn Claire's senses. I think that some people have an affinity for some. Um, like it's really funny. You might know people that do this, or you might do it yourself. I know quite a few people that will automatically sniff something when they pick it up. Do you know anybody who does that?
No
Just
comment.
me, just me and my weird friends. But um, like for example, I noticed my sister doing it one day. She was like, somebody had left a jumper. Her kids were teenagers at the time, and somebody had left a jumper behind, so she automatically picked it up and sniffed it, and she was like, "Oh, that belongs to so and so." And it was so there's partly that she was recognizing, their scent, their perfume or whatever that they wore, but it's also it can go a little bit deeper than that, because heightened it's that heightened sense that then leads you to um, be able to sense things that aren't present in our physical world as well. For example, my mum's no longer with us. She died 8 years ago, but often I'll get a smell. I'll be like, oh, I can smell mum. Hi, mum. Like, and that is kind of a signal to me that I know that she's present in some way in my life. But yeah, but there are there's tons of other Claire senses as well. Um, Claire gustance is one that always, which it's not something that I get particularly, but some people get like a taste, and I guess that's where the idea of having a bad taste in your mouth it comes from, talking about these phrases that come up seemingly from nowhere. But yes, some people will taste something, and that can be a way that people experience, yeah, things outside of our physical realm, outside of our physical understanding. Do you have any of those? Are you like you
What
said about reading the room?
What's interesting is that I had a conversation recently with Alex Thornton, who's written a book all about intuition and gut feeling. We had a great conversation. I happen to know you've listened to that one. And it
Yeah.
feels like almost our conversation feels like we're into the realms of an extension of gut feeling and intuition. It's now it feels like we've moved up a notch into sensing, that like you mentioned, I thought of the saying, when you can smell a rat.
Yeah.
And you've got this sixth sense that something's not right or something's amiss, but you just can't put your finger on it. And to people who are entirely, completely rational, logical thinkers, to share with them that you feel that something's off would
Mm,
probably just annoy them and wind them up, and they'd say, snap out of it. What's wrong with you? If you've got no logical reason, don't. I'm not interested. But in reality, many of us have this. I listen to a podcast called Real Survival Stories. Really recommend it. And very
mm,
often in those stories, the person will say, "Do you know, something was off that morning, and I was eating breakfast, or I got onto the boat, and I said to all of my colleagues, all the rest of the crew on the boat, I just feel like something's going to go wrong today." And, and then it became a self-fulfilling prophecy and it ended up happening.
yeah.
But because they had no rational basis to base that theory on, the captain had no choice other than to just commence with the voyage, and then, terrible things happened.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in that. Yeah.
It's really fascinating, isn't it? You
Yeah.
just saying that reminded me of it was a video on some video streaming something or other. I wasn't really paying that much attention to where I saw it, but I saw this short video, and it was a pilot on a domestic flight in the States. Um, and that's exactly what they said at the beginning of the flight. They said, look, I'm really sorry. The plane's been okayed for takeoff, but I'm really not feeling it. I'm not going to go ahead with the flight. They had no choice but to cancel the flight because the pilot was just like, yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not feeling it, I think were his words. Yeah, which is quite interesting, isn't it?
And what I was hoping you'd follow that by was saying, and then they found out a few days later that if he would have gone ahead with the flight, that.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the thing. I guess you never know. You never know because it didn't go ahead. Like it's one of those things, isn't it? But maybe if they were forced to go ahead. But yeah, no, I don't think because the plane had already been okayed for takeoff, so I don't think that they found anything wrong. But it's just a case of sometimes people who you would think would be very rational, logical,
Mm.
um, sometimes get those feelings that they aren't comfortable denying.
I feel like I want to ask if there's any pilots listening, is there a category?
Yeah.
Is there a category of reason for flight cancellation, colon, captain's intuition?
Yeah,
The
yeah, I'd love
captain
to know that.
the captain
Yeah.
felt that something was off. Um, so
Mm,
so like you said, you're in this 20-year career, and what I didn't
mm,
ask you yesterday and wanted to ask you today, I'm
mm.
curious about what led you pivoting from your career in social services to becoming a freelance writer, which from what you said earlier, I believe was around about the time you had your daughter.
Yeah, exactly that. Well, yeah, I had my daughter and at the same time became a solo parent. And my work in social care, I was a manager of services. If somebody didn't show up for work, I had to go in their place. It kind of involved being on call like 24/7. Um, it was, well, I did love it, but it was stressful.
Mm.
And it like interrupted my life. And simply put, I couldn't do that with a with a baby. I couldn't do it. You know, you can't go out when you've got a little baby at home. You can't go out and cover somebody's night shift. It just doesn't work. So yeah, so it was purely practical reasons that I had to leave, and I was like, oh, okay, so what can I do instead? Um, Always loved writing, ended up having to do a load of writing in my job, which you don't necessarily think of in social services. You think it's all very hands-on and being with people, but actually there's like a ton of paperwork that needs doing all the time, including bid writing and care plan writing and um, reviews and all of these sorts of things. Uh, and also during that career, I'd also done a degree in English too, and always loved writing anyway, and just thought, oh, I'll just give it a go. I'll give being a content writer a go. It was kind of like, it was 10 years ago, so blogging was like the new thing, right? Everybody with their own business suddenly needed to be having a blog, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's something that I can make money doing, and I can do in my own time. Can do it while baby's napping. You know, easy, perfect. Yeah, so that's what I did, and ended up because it was kind of my specialist subject, if you like, ended up doing work for um, spiritual coaches, alternative practitioners of all kinds. Um, and it was doing that I started to realize, like, it came to the point where I was working with these a particular spiritual coach, and I was having to all of the content that I was producing for her, I was then having to explain to her what it was, and at the same time we were doing like a skills swap. So she was actually offering me coaching. She was doing some coaching with me as well, and her kind of difficulty in understanding a lot of the concepts that I was putting forward in her content, combined with the vibe I was getting from the coaching that she was giving me, made me think, actually, I could be doing this so much better than you. Quite simply, I had some concerns about her coaching, and I knew that I could do it better. And so that was the point at which I started thinking, oh, coaching. Maybe I could. Maybe I could. But at the time, I was very much still hiding behind the fact that when I was writing, because I was ghostwriting all these blogs and content for people, it wasn't me. It wasn't my name on it. So I was still kind of in that little safety bubble of not having to uh, shout to the world about my spiritual beliefs and practices. Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of people, Pippa, who can relate to that point you get to in your career. I've been there before myself, where you look up at the next person up in kind of the hierarchy, you know, your manager or someone more senior to you in the business, and you think, I have a feeling I could be doing a better job than you are at your
Yeah.
job. And you might not be qualified, and you know, you might have all the answers, but you
Yeah.
can look at them and definitely think there's certain things you're doing that if I was in your position, I would not do, firstly, and then other
Yeah.
things you're doing that I feel I could do better.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'd be a lot of people listening thinking, I can relate to that. And then what did you do to take that leap from being in that position, looking up and thinking, there's a bit of an injustice here, a bit of an
Mm.
opportunity here, perhaps.
Mm.
What did you do to take that leap from getting from that position to then being in the position you are now?
Yeah, a little bit of both opportunity and yeah. Um, um, I got coaching. I met an amazing coach on LinkedIn called Rob Gilbert and had a session with him, literally the first session. Um, he just asked some questions that, well, and just gave me the confidence to do it, I think, with kind of asking me why I wasn't going ahead and being a coach. He showed belief in me for starters. But yeah, just asked me some really amazing questions about um why I wasn't doing that really. Particularly he asked me about my kind of fears about putting myself out there as being, because I mentioned about I'd been sort of hiding behind other people in my writing, and I was coming out with these, spiritual things and telling these spiritual stories and talking about witchcraft and spirituality and all of these kind of things. My name was never on it, so I was very much hiding, keeping completely in line with the shush, don't tell anyone I'd been getting from my parents as I grew up. And so speaking to Rob, it was just so simple. He just said, but what would happen if you did mix those things? What would be so bad? And it was just like, oh, yeah, nothing, actually. Nothing would be so bad. There isn't anything scary about that, really. Because, and this is a quote that Rob uses all the time, and it's become one of my favorite quotes, Dr. Seuss quote, those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. And it was like, yeah, actually, that's it. And so I kind of went for it. It did still take me a little while. It wasn't like the next day I was suddenly like, ta-da, coming out of my witchy closet. Um, but, um, but, um, but yeah, it did still take me a little while. But yeah, and that's basically what got me on the path. It was having coaching.
I love
Um,
that. Thank you,
mm,
Pippa. I wanted to point out, I wanted for anyone listening. So you
mm,
told me this story, and it's lovely to hear it again. So
mm,
earlier in the conversation, you mentioned that, right during your upbringing, kind of these two sides of your personality, of your life, this alternative reality developed where you were being one person, like a face for reality, and then there was
yeah.
kind of the real you going on as well. So there was this division. And what you said was that Rob, he asked you one question, and for anyone
Mm,
listening to the audio, Pippa brought her hands together and, you know,
yeah.
interlocked her fingers, because this one question Rob asked was, what would happen if the two sides of your identity were to be integrated together? What would happen? And you mentioned yesterday that it was like a revelation.
Yeah.
It was a huge moment of insight for you.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. Oh, well, it was huge because like thing is look, when it comes to sort of spirituality and things like that, there used to be, I don't think there is so much anymore, but there's a lot of fear that goes along with that. You don't want to be seen as the weirdo. You don't want to be seen as crazy. You don't want to, particularly in my work in social care, I was like a very responsible, like member of the community. I quite literally had people's lives in my hands. And you don't want to be thought of as being weird or um, crazy or irresponsible in any way, really. Um, and so that kind of maintained that boundary, if you like, that it kind of maintained that separation because it wasn't something that I would talk about um openly. So it just, yeah, it continued that separation that I'd had all through my school years. Um and so the idea that I could actually blend those two parts of me, it was completely life changing. Not only because it led to me becoming the coach that I am today, and giving me basically the life of my dreams. Um, but it encouraged me to make so many other bold choices because I stopped being afraid of what other people might think in a lot of ways. I just realized that there could be a different way and that I could actually blend these two parts of myself. And something something that is so huge is when we're operating from a place of not being our true self, our whole self, that has so many other little knock-on effects that it's too many to even begin to talk about, because you're hiding aspects of yourself. That's you telling yourself the whole time that they are not good enough, and so that's telling yourself that you are not good enough in a way, you're not good enough to be seen or whatever, because that part of you isn't good enough to be seen. Does that make sense? Do you see what I mean?
It makes total sense, and I can relate to it so much, Pippa. And I'm glad we've reached this point in the conversation.
Mm.
I remember, for years and years working in IT, and then towards the end of my 11-year career, just I was getting burnt out 3 to 4 times a year. Listeners of the podcast are probably tired of hearing it, but I was really unsatisfied. I was really unhappy, but I couldn't put my finger on why. There was this war raging inside of me, this internal battle. And what it was because how I was trying to be someone all day long, every day, that wasn't me. And there was this battle between who I was trying to be and who I actually am. And there was like this war raging, and it led to, like I say, burnouts. It physically manifested in lots of ways, including years and years of lower backache with no explanation as to why. And that only all left me and escaped me when I finished that job and I went traveling for a year, because I allowed myself to just simply be myself and to meet people and travel and explore and introduce myself to people as me. And I wasn't
Yeah.
trying to be anyone that I wasn't. And then that my version of your integration, the coming together of the two halves, led to this realization of, oh my God, life doesn't have to be one giant battle, and it doesn't have to all be suffering. It can actually be quite pleasurable.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's it. And it's so for you, it's traveling that kind of enabled you to break out of that mold of who you'd been trying to, because it's a strange one, isn't it? But like these expectations, this is unlearning. Unlearning is such an important part of learning who we are, isn't it? Unlearning all these expectations that are society's expectations, maybe family, friends, neighbors, schools, work, all of these, it's all it's all these external pressures end up contributing to creating somebody that we are not. And it's only when we chip away at those, when we break free of the mold by going traveling or by doing something outside of our usual, that we can really begin to find out who we are, I think.
So that lends me on, how would you
Mm.
now, or how do you work with people if there was someone who's listening to the show and saying, well, yes, I can relate to this. I feel as though there's a gap between who I'm trying to be every day and who I actually am, my like authentic self,
Yeah.
warts and all. How would you work with that person, or what would you suggest to them for trying to bridge that gap?
Well, there's so many different ways, and it depends on, but I think I did a post about this the other day, and I was talking about it was I entitled it "An Argument Against Habits." um, And I think that that is one way that we can help break out of that, is by simply doing something different, making our brain fire in a slightly different way, even if that means, um, breaking out of autopilot. That's kind of what I'm talking about, even if it means taking a different route to work, using a different method of transport to get to work, um, reading a different kind of book, listening to a different kind of music, doing anything that helps you break out of the patterns that you've created. Because from a biological point of view, that makes your brain begin to fire in different ways, um, builds new pathways in your brain. From an energetic point of view, it tells the universe that you're ready for something different.
Mm.
And so that's that's where I would sort of suggest starting, is by just doing something different. You know, meditation and other spiritual practices combined with that, as I always say to people, that's where the magic is.
And what makes your coaching different from the average coach or someone who brands himself as just a pure ICF standard coach? What makes your coaching different?
um, my coaching is hugely based in energy. Like, that's, I work with people and their energy. So um, whether I'm doing life coaching or business coaching, which I'm doing more of. Surprise! It's so funny. If you'd have asked me a few years ago, or if you'd have told me a few years ago, you're going to be coaching like incredibly successful coaches or business, solopreneurs, I'd have been like, what business coaching, really? Like, that would really, I wouldn't have believed it. Um, but actually, a huge, huge, huge element of business is energy, is to do with energies. You can have all the strategies, you can be following all the using all the tools, following all the spreadsheets, or whatever you want to do, for reading the books, business books. But actually, if the energy isn't right, then you're still going to fall flat. And so that's where I come in. So many of my clients have already worked with sales coaches and business coaches, and they're still not getting any success. And that's why, because it's down to energy. Mm.
And what would you say to people who are they're listening, perhaps a little skeptical on working with energy, on spirituality, on magic,
Mm.
anything that's unconventional and holistic?
Um, well, my my great my great grandmother um wouldn't have electricity installed in her house, because that's the way she felt about electricity. She preferred her gas lamps that they would light with matches, because that's safe. Um, and so I think it's just, you know, that seemed like, devilry and witchcraft to her, the idea of electricity, because it was something that she couldn't see and she couldn't understand. For me, I don't think energy's any different. There are tons of things that we can't necessarily see that are real. Well, um, Wi-Fi connections, for one thing, we can't see those, but they work. There's loads of stuff. It's so many people would quite happily say that they believe in love. That's something um, that you can't
Measure.
see and you can't prove. So, uh, yeah, but each to their own. I'm not going to try and force anybody to believe in something that they're not ready or willing to believe in. That's not what I do.
Yeah, and I
Mm,
liked your answer to that question. It's being
mm,
open to possibilities, being interested, being open-minded.
mm,
Um, I try to be, but again, not inflicting what we believe on others, as it's
Yeah.
horses for courses. What works for you might not work for me, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And that feels like a good time to just pick up on what we mentioned yesterday about the energy of AI. Now you've observed what I've observed, a bit of a sort of LinkedIn feed rot going on, I'm going to call it, where
Yeah.
you can sense scrolling through social media posts when more and more of them are being AI written or at least AI influenced. There's a it can be quite draining to read through them, and I've been struggling to put my finger on why that is. But I'm interested in your angle as to why that is.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it? And like, I mean, there is an aspect of the fact that a lot of it means that there is a lot of quite generic. There's quite a lot of generic posts. You see the same pattern, don't you? Oh, it's not this, it's this. You see that it's the same sort of format almost. But I think it's more than that. I think that every time you create something, whatever it is, you're using your creative energy to make that. You're putting your energy into it. And this is one of the things that when I'm coaching people, I will say, if you're feeling bad, if you're feeling rubbish, if you're feeling negative, if you're having like a lack day, when you're feeling a bit needy, um, don't write a post that day. Save it for, you're not, it's going to do more harm than good to write a post when you're in that kind of energetic space. And so the opposite is true too. When you're feeling expansive, when you're feeling high energy, when you're um a great time to write a post is when you've just been put when a client's just paid you. When a client's just paid an invoice, because then your energy is abundant. That's who, you're feeling, yeah, expansive and high vibrational energy. Um, so to have AI write posts, there's none of your energy going in there. None. Um, and so it's not even like it's like you mentioned it yesterday, it's a kind of neutral. It's neutral. It's not really anything. It's kind of dead. It's whereas if you're reading somebody's post that get in, you get insights into their feelings, how they. It's like you were saying about reading the room. When you read somebody's post, I think, especially if you're particularly sensitive to energies, I think that you can feel that something's off. And I think that and the huge volume of AI generated posts on LinkedIn is making the feed feel a little bit dead. It's like it's kind of flatlining. Um, that's that's how I feel about it anyway.
No,
Mm,
I agree. I think it's a really interesting angle because I know from you can work with an AI coach, and I've had a go with
mm,
it, and it's really good, and I definitely recommend people giving it a go. Why not? Um, but I've found that it can be quite a draining activity. Technically, it's asking great coaching questions. Technically, it's a great coach, but there's something missing, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. But from an energetic point of view, working with another person face to face, even if they're a so-so mediocre coach, it's still, I don't know, it feels more valuable for me than just working with a tool because there's some
yeah.
there's some energy in the room, and you can go away feeling more enthusiastic, feeling hyped up, feeling more positive or more excited about your endeavor on your new venture versus speaking to AI. It does feel just a bit, like you say, a bit lifeless.
Yeah, it's soulless
Yeah.
because that's exactly what it is, right?
Mm.
It's soulless. Uh, yeah, I even wonder if like the comparison with like zombie movies is worthwhile. It feels like that kind of thing, isn't it? It's not. Yeah, no, there's no soul in there. That's not to say that I don't. I've used AI and I do use AI for some things. Um, so it's not that it's, I'm not being a Luddite as far as that, as far as that goes. I think that in some things, some ways, it's really worthwhile to use. Um, but when you're trying to speak to people, especially when you're trying to attract clients, especially for coaches, we work with people on it's such a close relationship. It's such a soulful activity, coaching, that to try and draw people to you when you're a coach by using a robot, it doesn't it it doesn't feel right. And I think that people just maybe haven't put two and two together yet, but I think that there's quite a lot of people out there using an AI to write all of their posts and wondering why they're not getting um, the clients that they feel that they should be getting, or why their clients have dropped off when they've started writing AI to write their posts. Because I think often you can read it and think, oh, that's a really good post. I think a lot of that comes down to confidence too. People don't have confidence in their own writing abilities. Whereas actually, oh, I would prefer to read somebody's post full of typos and mistakes, and for some bits of it to not be quite right, because it's full of them, their life, their soul, their energy.
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. So how does my question that came to mind
Mm.
there was, how does someone listening, in this increasingly AI-driven, AI-led era that
Mm.
we're very much in, not entering, we're in, we're there, it's happening, there's
Yeah.
no stopping it. How do we maintain our own energy levels? How do we make sure that what we're putting out there in our career, our job, our business, social media, how do we ensure that our content is landing well whilst utilizing AI as a tool, but not allowing it to zap all the energy out of our work and out of, more crucially, all the energy out of us as human beings?
Well, I trying to think critically is a good place to start. And being consuming consciously.
Mm.
Um, and putting your I think putting your energy into, or being aware of the energy that you put into your consumption, I think, as well. Because I think if you're reading, scrolling through your feed and all of the posts sound the same, if they're all that generic, then our our need to be like other people sneaks in. And so we will end up thinking that creating content that looks just like that is normal. Um, so I think allowing yourself to, or training your feed, curating your feed is so important when it comes to any social media, and be choosing consciously what you are going to respond and react to. Like I admit, been consciously not responding, even if they're some of my favorite people. I've been not responding to um, content that is very clearly AI written, and you can see these same patterns forming. Um, like I say about the it's not this, it's this. That's a classic one for me. That it's always like, oh, that's so AI. Or yeah, there's a few phrases that AI seems to regurgitate over and over again. Um, and yeah, formatting. Um, and yeah, so I consciously don't engage with those and try to ensure that my feed is full of life and soul.
Thanks for
Yeah.
that, Pippa. So it's going on a bit of a digital detox. I love what you said about curating your feed,
Yeah.
carefully managing what you consume and when you consume it so that
Yeah.
it doesn't consume you.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah.
Yes, and I
Mm.
like that we also, it's very fitting to mention again that we met through commenting on our mutual friend Snippy's post on LinkedIn, and she's one of those people who all of her posts I feel are very real and raw, a little bit controversial, quite snappy, but it's real, it's human, it's raw,
Yeah.
it's authentic, it's not AI generated generic, it's not this, it's this
Yeah.
nonsense.
Yeah.
So, but I'm also aware that, you mentioned in our last conversation, you did a bit of an experiment a while ago with some non-AI and AI posts. How did
Yeah.
that go?
Oh, well, it bothered me a little bit, to be perfectly honest, because I was really hoping I was really hoping to kind of have my have my kind of my desire sort of backed up in what happened. Like, I was really hoping like my AI post wouldn't do, or I did a few, my AI posts wouldn't do as well, and they actually did. And I even had some people going, "Oh, great post," and it was like, "Ah, really?" um
Was it them
but
or was it their AI bots commenting?
well, this is the thing. How do you even know? Like, how do you even know? And that's the thing. Sometimes when you see the comments and it's like, oh, thanks for summarizing my thanks for summarizing my post for me. Like, it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? But yeah, it didn't. I mean, I didn't get any sales calls booked from my AI post, so I suppose that's saying something. Maybe even,
Hmm.
but quite often my actual sales posts don't necessarily get calls booked either. It tends to be something completely random that I that I post about, thinking, oh, this isn't suitable for LinkedIn, that tends to get me. But that's it. It's heart and soul again, isn't it?
It
Mm.
is, it feels like it's like, again, the old saying of quality over quantity. Just
Yeah,
because your engagement, you're getting a lot of likes and a lot of comments on your post, doesn't necessarily mean they're landing and that people are inquiring.
yeah,
So it's a reminder that, some of these statistics that we all follow and some of us live by are a little bit arbitrary and can be taken with a pinch of salt. Because coach once told me years ago, it'll be the post that you put out that doesn't get many likes and maybe gets no comments that'll really reach someone and resonate with them, and they might
yeah,
contact you about your big, you know, posts that get all the likes and comments, the big hitters, the headline posts. The chances are they might not actually lead to anything. So
yeah,
don't take the figures, don't take the likes and the comments at face value. I think it's the lesson I have
yeah.
on that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the conversations that has come up time and time again when I've been working with coaches is that actually sometimes it's comments that you make on other people's posts that tend to be the things that might bring sales your way. And that's so interesting as well, because quite often it's comments are almost throwaway, aren't they? But actually, um, our comments say so much about us. One of the things that I will sometimes do when somebody tries to connect with me is I will go and have a look at their comments. Um, and it gives you, like, rather than their posts, I'll look at the comments that they've made on other people's posts. And that gives you such an insight, because their posts might be all very kind of sort of their corporate face. Um, but then they might be commenting hi on every picture of a woman in that, and you're like, yeah, maybe not. Okay. Uh,
But I've stopped doing that now.
oh,
I told you not to mention that. We're gonna have to cut that out. Kidding, kidding, joking, kidding. I know what you mean. It's very telling to see how
yeah,
people interact with other people rather than what they just project outward.
yeah,
Lee,
yeah.
I agree. So as we start to wrap today's conversation up, a question I just wanted to ask you was, if someone's listening, how might they know that they are your ideal client?
oh, is it too woolly to say they will just get a feeling? I think quite often that's actually it. People have contacted me and said, "Do you know, I just had a feeling that you might be able to help me with." And sometimes it's not even something that I necessarily advertise that I do. I'm not a relationship coach, but I've had people approach me and want me to help them within their relationships or trying to be in a relationship. But that's not something that I advertise as doing. But it's because energy affects everything. It's, it can just be something, yeah, something that somebody feels that they would like some help with.
So
A hand
go
to
ahead.
hold.
A hand to hold. I love it.
Yeah.
So that person who's listening and has that feeling of, I think I ought to. What's the easiest way for them to get in touch? While they have the
Oh,
feeling.
yeah, when you've got the feeling, if you get the feeling, you like what I'm saying, you're interested in energies, that's it really. If you've just got an interest. Sometimes it's that belief that there's something more. Or sometimes a lot of people that I work with actually relate to that feeling of having that spiritual side, but not sure how to bring it into their business as well. That's something that I work with people a lot. But yes, sorry, they can contact me on LinkedIn, probably really easy way to go. I've got a website too. You can contact me through that. Pippa Haywood, the magic coach, as opposed to Pippa Haywood, the actress, who causes me no end of problems, lovely though she is. But yeah, come find me on LinkedIn or come and find me via my website. And it's everything just starts with a conversation. I'm not a pushy salesperson, so if somebody just wants to come along and have a chat with me, then that's wonderful.
I agree, and it's Pippa Hay Wood, not
Yes.
EY. And to answer that question myself, if someone's listening and they've got a huge vision and a mission, and they feel that life's meant to be more, and that something's missing, something's lacking, and that there's a bit of a disconnect and a gap, by all means reach out to me as well, because I feel inspired by hearing people's vision. I absolutely love discussing with people what like the big end goal is, what the big mission is, what the finish line looks like for them, in a non-morbid way, the good finish line, the ultimate goal. What is it, that thing, and how can we break it down and work out how we can get them there one step at a time? So, and if someone wants to get in touch with me, again, it's thesolocoach.co.uk is my website, and I'm at the Solo Coach on most social medias. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today, Pippa. Thank you for coming on. It's been a very unusual, very magical, very unconventional, alternative, refreshingly alternative conversation about topics that I know little to nothing about, which is wonderful because I've learned lots. So thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for gracing us with your presence and your energy today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been such fun. I've loved talking with you. Thank you so much, David.
Wonderful. You're very welcome.
The Solo Coach Podcast.